Okay, so I guess I'm just going to kind of jump around a little bit on this topic. I'm going to start with how we handle our rehab bookkeeping and payables. I think this is the most valuable information for the bookkeeping. Not many people are doing property management, or if they are, it's long term. And I don't have many screen shares during this call. Some of this information that we have in our QuickBooks is kind of confidential information that I can't really share. But I've done, just a couple of basic things. So, okay, so when we are receiving invoices on work that's been completed on our properties, that this is for rehab, this is for turnover, basically any project that's being completed with construction and that may require outside contractors or vendors to complete the work. They will meet with a project manager, the person, and we call them field ops managers, who is overseeing the project. They will meet with them to discuss the scope of work, the dates of completion, progress, how payment works, and all of that information. So that needs to be, that's really important because that should be discussed up front with the person receiving the payment. That way there isn't any questions or information that's been left out. The other important piece to this as far as entering things is everything in our accounting system is date driven. It's really important that the information that you're entering is entered for the same dates during the same pay periods and cycles. That's going to affect the reports, how you're able to pull them, and how easily and to be able to capture the most information that you need in the reports when you're doing your financial statements and profit and loss statements, so on and so forth. So first, we've set up a special email address. It's basically invoices at our domain to basically capture all of the invoices that people are submitting. We've asked that people submit invoices by Monday morning at 8 a.m. A lot of times we have multiple projects going at a time. And if people are just sending in invoices whenever they feel like it, sometimes it doesn't give us any time to process the payment, get approval, make sure that they're meeting their progress that they're submitting for, so on and so forth. So you really want to, we've set these deadlines to allow us enough time to do everything we need to do on our end to fully investigate and make sure that the payment is due to them. We do pay extremely quickly. So if they submit an invoice on Monday by 8 a.m., they will receive payment as early as the following Friday. So basically 7 days before they will receive a payment. It's very quick. So again, we've set up the invoices email address to receive these payments. And we've kind of put an automatic response. So anytime somebody sends an invoice, we just ask them to verify that they have all of the information that we need. We don't ever want to stop and waste time trying to contact somebody after they've already submitted an invoice. My personal opinion is if you're looking to get paid, you should basically include all of the necessary information for us to be able to do that quickly. So the information that we would really like them to submit is obviously their full name, their business name, whatever they've submitted their 1099 under, and that's how we will remit their payment or make the check payable to.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what we require them to give us up front, and then what's that website that we give them for them to submit invoices if they don't have an invoice program?
So we send them the website. It is Invoice. Let me just double check what that website is.
Invoice Home?
Yes. Yes, it's invoicehome.com, not plural, just invoice. That website is free to a certain point, but once they have invoiced so many dollars, then it starts to charge them. It's fairly inexpensive. I don't know the exact cost off the top of my head, but we only refer that to them so that way we can try to streamline the invoices that we're receiving.
Yeah, that way guys without, computers or stuff like that, they can, submit an invoice. They can do it on their phone and hit the email.
Yeah, they try to do it all different ways, and it makes it kind of difficult versus them just like if we make everybody follow the standard. Some people just do the old-fashioned handwritten bids and invoices on a sheet of paper, and we will accept those, but most of the time it's still emailed to us or it's dropped off at the front office as long as it's here by 8 a.m. We do go through and print the invoices. A lot of notes are taken on the invoices. We do a lot of research on our end just to fully make sure that they are they've earned that payment.
Yeah.
So yes, if you want to check out invoicehome.com, again, it's not, it's free to a certain point, and then it will start charging. But it will help kind of streamline everything. I will do a quick screen share.
I have to make it easier. Okay.
So this is kind of what the template looks like, and this automatically. So how you start is you log in with your email address, and then it's super simple. It's going to walk you through everything, and this is everything we required. Who is the invoice from? Who is it going to? You can set an invoice number. You can set a date, whatever date the contractor wants to use, and then a brief description of what happened or what they did there. So the address that they did the work at or completed the work at, and basically any details. It can be fairly brief in certain situations. I know when rehab crews are submitting an invoice, depending on how large the crew is, they're able to accomplish quite a bit during a week. So they might have a large description to include in there. For rehab, that's a little bit different in the way that we accept invoices are based off of progress. So I'll kind of get into that in a little bit. And then it'll give the total, and then if they had any terms or conditions that they want to put on their invoice. But it allows the contractor or whoever will be using this form to customize it, so they can add their own company logo. The other feature is they can track their invoices. So any invoices, so this is what it generates, and this is what what they would end up sending to us. But it will allow you to track. So any payments or any invoices that you've sent, any that you've received payment on. So it kind of works in their favor as well. It doesn't just help us streamline our invoices, it kind of puts it into a system for them to use. And there are several free invoice templates that people can use. I mean, I think we've gotten a little bit lax on this only because sometimes they're very, very good at doing the work, not really great at getting invoices to us. And so we had to kind of pick our battles there. So that is that website. And so I'm going to kind of circle back to our progress payments for rehab. Our rehab contracts are written in a way that they include the scope of work and basically what qualifies as 25, 50, 75, and 100% progress. So when somebody's invoicing, we just ask that they include that progress amount. If they're at 25%, then they're submitting for that 25% payment. So they would include that on their invoice as well. So they would include the work that they've completed or their progress, the date that they completed the work. We do ask that any work they've submitted payment on is completed before sending that invoice in. A lot of people try to submit early and get paid early on things. So you kind of have to watch that. And then their address where we'll be mailing the check and who the project manager is. That helps us track down who we need to get the approval on the work that was completed. And then of course the amount due. That's important because sometimes there can be discrepancies. So all of this information is very, very important to kind of figure out what payment they're entitled during the time that they're submitting it. Once we receive all of these invoices on Monday at 8 a.m., again, we print all of the invoices off. This will allow us to do our research. We work off of a system called Podio, and in there we're able to track the progress that's being made on rehab projects. So we can kind of go through the notes. We can tag the project managers to notify them that we're asking questions. Some of the questions may be, is this contractor at 25%? There is a progress bar that allows them to kind of set the progress, but we want to verify that the information we're receiving or the information we have access to from an accounts payable standpoint is correct before sending out that check or that payment. The other information we're at times researching, depending on the project, it may be who the owner of the property is. This is super important to make sure that it's being billed correctly to the owner of the property. We do a lot of other research. If it's a maintenance request, it could be what the work order number is. It could be what we have approved by the owner, making sure everything falls within the amounts and the agreed upon bids and scope of work with everybody involved in the company. Again, we want to do this just to make sure we're not handing out any payments that aren't earned or payments that weren't agreed on. So that's really important that we get that done. The next is entering it into QuickBooks. I'm going to share with you a couple of, I just put them into a Word document for reference. So I will
talk about when you're getting that, what documents you collect from a contractor.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. You did bring that up. So we have a 1099 or a W-9 for 1099 contractors. I can pull that form up as well and have that to share. And then we also require their insurance information on what their coverage is. It's like a certificate of, I can't remember the exact term for that. I can try to, but it's basically your insurance just stating how much you're covered. If there are any damages or anything goes wrong while you're at the job site, we do require that as well.
It's not a bond, is it?
Yes, yep, it's a bond, but there's another certificate that is required. Give me one sec, I can try to pull that up.
And we have to 1099 every vendor we pay out, right?
We do, that's correct. That way we can send them their tax documents at the for the previous tax year.
Oh, when you say you're saying 1099 every vendor. Can you give me examples?
I mean, anybody that's doing any kind of work, anybody that is an outside contractor that's not on your payroll should have completed a 1099 form to be able to work on your properties. Now, there are some specific tax guidelines and things like that if you wanted to kind of get into that information. There are certain amounts where if somebody is making under a certain amount, then they don't need to,
I think over here is like under $300 or something like that.
oh, okay, that's fairly low. I think ours is a little bit higher than that, but I'm not
What period, a month?
No, it's in the whole year period, like your tax
year. Okay.
I think at least in the state of Indiana, it's 600, and that's based on people who do like Uber Eats and all the deliveries. If you make less than $600 in your sales from those kind of things, then you have to, and that's a 1099 rule. So.
Yep, and that sounds about correct here. I believe it's $600. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna share with you the W-9 that a contractor would need to fill out.
It's like a 2019 1099 form.
Yeah.
And they're free online, right?
Yes, they are.
So those we've uploaded those in a DocuSign too. So if you ever want to, you can just email it over to the guy and have him DocuSign it. So either way.
Yeah. So this is what that looks like, and it just looks like your basic tax form. It's just a different certification.
Keep saying 1099.
That's what I was saying too. Yeah, so we require those and we keep them in a binder. That way we have them. I would collect them on all. You're better safe than sorry, in my personal opinion on that. It would just be easier just to collect them from everybody that's doing work. And then depending on, obviously just enter this stuff directly into, we use QuickBooks for our accounting and vendor transactions, so on and so forth. So.
We specifically use, it's QuickBooks, QuickBooks Enterprise Contractor Edition, right?
You know what? I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, it is the Contractor Edition. You're right. What is everybody else using for their accounting software?
I'm using an Excel sheet.
Oh man, you need Xero or QuickBooks Online at least.
I know. I've been using an Excel sheet for like a couple of years. I mean, I've been handling it. It gets overwhelming and a little messy, but I keep it together.
Yeah, I think QuickBooks Online is pretty cheap and easy. Like you can use your phone to do
look into it, but just something I never got in.
I think Excel is okay if you're managing things on a smaller level or a smaller scale.
Yeah, I'll do like
there's so much.
I'll do 2 flips at a time so I can manage everything.
So my CPAs told me that you can do the online. That's nice because then your accountant, as you grow, then they can see that. If you're an individual like I am for my own personal life, I use QuickBooks on my desktop, and it actually has more capabilities. So at the end of the month, I just send my CPA reports. But for the business, she can get into the business one, and that's why if you do the online one, it's a little bit nicer.
That's the one thing I don't like about desktop. Desktop has crazy features. It's really good, but online, you can't, without having online, you can't connect it to any third-party programs or share it. So I know.
That's what's really nice. We can pull, because we do our property management software, which we do out of AppFolio, and with QuickBooks, it allows you to import some of those, financial statements out of AppFolio into QuickBooks, where we do a majority of our accounting or all of the final.
Import, right?
Yeah.
Tyler, you mentioned QuickBooks and you said Xero.
Xero is another one. Xero. If you're just getting started with one, I think QuickBooks Online would be the best place though.
Okay.
It's going to be super helpful. It's going to track your profit and loss. If you have a certain budget that you've set aside, you can, check your progress, pull those numbers, pull that information just to see if you're on track. And then you can look back and maybe it'll help you grow your business in a way that you're like, okay, I'm spending too much here. Maybe I can make cuts here. Maybe I can do this a little bit more efficiently. So I think it's super helpful, the reports that you're going to be able to pull out of QuickBooks.
Yeah. Plus, like when you go to a bank, say you're trying to line up lending or something, you just spit that report out of QuickBooks in 2 seconds instead of, compiling your spreadsheets and.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I don't know. There's kind of, I've learned quite a bit about Excel that I really like pivot tables, things like that.
For our payables, we use Excel. We use pivot tables.
Yeah, just to kind of track it and to be able to put it together in a report that's easy to understand. So when you're pulling from QuickBooks, I mean, you're pulling, I pulled this payables report that we use. And I mean, the amount of contractors that are labeled on this report, I mean, we have over 60 contractors that fall under our payables, and that's just for our maintenance and rehab. So it's a way that we can pull their entire amount due, what they were previously paid, what they're what's approved to be paid, so on and so forth. So it's the pivot tables just make it really easy in Excel to pull together the data that you're trying to present and either receive approval from project managers and different things like that.
But we're double entering to do that, right?
No, you're actually pulling a report directly from QuickBooks to put all of this data, just kind of dumps in Excel. And then by using a pivot table, you're kind of just pulling together the necessary information or the information that you're trying to provide. So, like in his case, he's doing a lot of his bookkeeping just with Excel. He may be able to look into different tables and different things like that to be able to just pull the pertinent information or pull it by a specific address, because he is functioning on a smaller scale than, like 2 flips. I think it would be doable to work off of Excel. Okay, so once we've entered, that's what I was going to show you. We were talking about the 1099 form, and then I kind of got off track there, sorry.
Megan, you're on Ryan's team, right?
Yes, I am. Okay. And I have no accounting background whatsoever, and I'm the one who's apparently doing all this.
You're doing the bookkeeping?
I found us a bookkeeper. And unfortunately he had a bookkeeper out in California, and she's kind of screwed things up, and now he has no faith in anybody, and I'm like, okay. I can calculate 23% off for those boots, but that's about it.
So I'm going to show you really quickly while I have this up. I was just going to share with you like our ideal invoice coming from a contractor. So the black boxes that I've included there are just to kind of block out their personal information. But the top lines indicate who the invoice is coming from. And the next is who they're billing it to, which would be our company. And then they had a set invoice number, the date, the total amount due, and then down here underneath products, you can see that they were doing a rehab and they included their progress payment for 75%, and that they've included photos and of course the address, and then that it was a rehab. So this is what the ideal invoice would look like.
Yeah, so they sent the pictures to like the project manager, right? The project manager puts them in Podio, and then
correct. Or if they are the project manager, then they would be doing frequent checks of the property just to verify that the progress is what the contractor is stating that it is.
Yeah, and then in our scope of work in the beginning, we already preset what our payment schedule will be, so they can simply just say, I'm billing for 25, 50, 75, whatever.
Correct. Yeah.
To write out an entire paragraph.
Exactly. And then this is what an entry, again, I'm not sharing our QuickBooks file just because it has, our financial information in there. But this is what a bill entry looks like. So this is how we would enter the payments for the 1099 contractors. So the vendor name is their payable name, the name that they've included on their W-9. And then the date. This is so important. Again, the dates are very, very important with accounting because you want to make sure that when you're pulling these reports, you can all capture them for the same time period. So for example, today is Monday the 27th. Any invoices that we would have received today, we would date for last Friday because the work should have been completed the prior week. Again, anything we're receiving invoices on, the work should have already been completed. And then all of the other information here, you want to be as descriptive as you possibly can. So you really want to focus on your addresses. You want to focus on any invoice numbers, that reference number that's underneath the date. That I try to include a little bit of everything there and just kind of my own code. So for example, if they have an invoice number that they're billing under, so for example, this invoice number here is 797, I would put that in first, and then I would put a dash, and then I would include the address, the beginning numbers of the address, 1425. So when I'm looking at my QuickBooks payables for my vendors, I can easily identify what their invoice number is for if I need to pull their invoice number up later in our system, and I would include the property address. This makes it so if you're reviewing multiple invoices or multiple bills, you can quickly look at that reference number that's going to show up in your reports and figure out what it is and what it's for.
And then you can search too, right?
Yes, yep, you can search as well. Amount due, of course, is the amount that they're billing for. The bill due, this will already be preset in your QuickBooks, so it's kind of what you want to set up. So I usually don't mess with the bill due. Like I said, it's preset. And then class, this is what we use to track the addresses. So the address, even though I've included it, the first or the house number in the reference number, I'm still going to set the class. This will help you pull, you can pull reports based off of class. So if you're looking at a profit and loss report for this specific address, you're going to be able to take a look and see everything that's come in and out for this property. And then the memo, if it's for rehab, I'll include, 25% progress payment, and then maybe the amount. Again, as much information with as little words as possible for this top portion of the bill. And then the account, this is going to be something that you've set up. We have the account, so under where it says expenses, I'm sorry, and then it says account, we have an account set up for our rehab expenses. And then of course, the amount that you've included at the top will automatically transfer to the bottom. And then the memo, I always lead off with the date that the work was completed with their name, and then a description of what was done or the progress amount. And that's kind of how I enter a bill into QuickBooks, just to make sure I have all the information that we need. And then at the end of it, hold on, I need to, at the end of, so we receive all of our invoices on Monday, and then we do all of the data entry all throughout the day Monday, and then on Tuesday is when we're going to start providing our reports to our project managers. That's really important because you know, as your bookkeeper, whoever's keeping your books or doing your accounts payable, that's all they should be doing. They are not going to know whether this invoice is approved or what the bid is. So we want to make sure all this information is entered. Then we can pull the reports from QuickBooks and provide those to the necessary project managers to be able to sign off and approve the progress, approve the work, approve the vendor, so on and so forth. Does anybody have any questions so far?
You on Steve? I think he's echoing for me.
Do what?
Can you mute Steve's iPhone?
Sure.
Echoing.
Okay. So also, so part of our rehab process, part of our project process for rehab and for turnover, so in between tenants, any kind of bid work, we do what's called a punch list at the end of the project, just to verify that everything is ready and basically to our standards, what we've put in place that goes through all of our checks and balances. So as part of the final payments, we will hold back a portion of that payment until the property is listed and all of the punch list repairs are completed. If you've already paid somebody out and then they go back to the job and say, or you send them back to the job and ask them to complete things, the chances of them doing that are slim to none since they've already been paid out the full payment. So that's something that is explained to contractors early on as well, that they must pass basically our internal checklist before they receive the full final payment.
We hold back 25% of that.
Yeah, it just depends on what the work is, but yeah, 25% is pretty standard. Again, we've just kind of learned the hard way that getting people to get back out there and finish what was agreed upon at the beginning, if they've been paid in full, is the chances are not likely.
Yeah, I think the entire house is pretty much done up to 75%. It's just like finishes and stuff, like a couple little things to get you from 75 to 100, plus the punch list being signed off. That gives you the remaining 25.
At what point do you when you pay that 25% then? Is it like you're listed, what if things come back on the inspection report and those kind of things? Do you hold it until you're closed?
So we are finishing our rehab properties to be ready for listing to receive a tenant. So they go from our rehab into our property management department, basically. So what we do is we're holding back that 25%. It goes through an internal punch list. And then once that internal punch list is completed, then we will push it ready for listing. So it goes on our website. Okay. So once it's past that, then they receive it. Now the sales could happen, at any time, basically between before the property's finished in rehab, all the way up through, we've already had tenants there for a while. So we don't typically hold up that rehab payment for a sales punch list. Yeah. What?
We pre-sell a lot of times, don't we?
Yeah, there are times, but I'm just saying that our standard process is the work is completed to make it rent ready.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's kind of the QuickBooks or rehab maintenance, basically any kind of construction bookkeeping side of things. Did anybody have any questions or anything that we want to discuss in better detail?
I guess my question, so what we're really struggling with right now, because we had multiple people sort of in our books and none of them really quite understood like the real estate side of things. So things haven't been tracked particularly well from what I can understand at this point. So moving forward, we're trying to make that happen because taxes this year have been a nightmare, right? You can't qualify how much have you lost, how much you've gained, because nothing's really been, notated from what I can see.
Right.
And so I heard you guys say that there's a contractor edition of QuickBooks. Do you know if that's like an add-on you can just add to what your existing is? Do you highly recommend that specifically? Because so we're not in the rental game. We are fix flip, get it off the books. So is that something you would highly recommend? It's the contractor edition.
I think it just it's from when you initially install QuickBooks. So if you wanted the contractor edition, you have to reinstall QuickBooks Desktop Enterprise.
Mine's not gonna be, the company one's not a desktop. The company one is all online. So.
I don't know if online gives you the different types of editions. But desktop does, and the way we do it, we run QuickBooks Desktop Enterprise Contractor Edition multi-user, so we can have multiple people in the office working in that file at the same time. So we have like a computer in the office that no one can see. It's in a closet, and they all remote into that computer and do the work.
We're not quite there yet. That's the unfortunate part, is I don't have quite that.
It doesn't take much to get there. I mean, it's like a $500 computer, and then if you have two people that need to access it, so be it. But I think it just pre-configures reports, right, KaLynn? That's like the only difference.
And I'm going to be honest, I've not used any other edition of QuickBooks, so I'm just basically trained on that. But I can tell you that the reports and information that you can pull from there are very, very helpful as far as what's been done and where you're going, and it may help you kind of project your profit and loss. I do think it's very, very helpful, but again, I've not used a different version of QuickBooks necessarily.
Okay.
I've heard.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you can go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, I'm at a loss. This is not I'm way out of my wheelhouse. I don't even know what to tell the bookkeepers to even, like, I don't even know questions asked to be able to say, try this one, not try this one for us. So, and just trying to nail into everybody's head, you can't just put in Lowe's. That doesn't work. Lowe's to what property, you know? Yeah. So trying to find something that's extremely easy where somebody just says, you know, this property and this is what this was. I mean, moving forward, we're going to be doing contractor materials and labor bids only. So they're going to get all their stuff. I don't even have to worry about it anymore. But sort of looking backwards and then some miscellaneous, that's the struggle point right now for our bookkeeping system.
Is there any like paper records or anything that anybody kept that goes with that? Any place you can kind of start it from?
I have no idea at this point, I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
I mean, I hate to say it, it just kind of is what it is right now. And, you know, it would have been a whole lot easier if it had been started correctly. And now that it's not, it's like, here's a garbage bag of receipts. Kind of.
Got it.
At some point.
I don't think it truly is a garbage bag of receipts, but that's kind of how it feels.
Yeah. At some point when it's like that, you have to just, you know, cut your loss from that point back and just start fresh.
Well, and that's what we're really trying to do at this point. I mean, I can't, not to air a bunch of dirty laundry, but I'm like, I need this to happen so we can move forward. And but this part is such a ball of twine, I can't find anybody to take it on.
Are there multiple people in your QuickBooks account working, or is it just you right now?
I'm not even in the QuickBooks account yet.
Okay.
Who's genuinely doing most of our bookkeeping. It's just him, but I think somehow things have been automated. So like if a credit card swipe happens on the company card, like, you know, I'm out of town and there's an Uber ride. Okay. It goes on because I'm on a business trip, it went in the business account, but it doesn't say where it is or where you're going or who you're meeting. So at some point, I've not been in this wrong before, but I've had to turn in all of my receipts before. And it's usually, I took an Uber ride from the airport meeting so-and-so and such business trip.
Right.
And it has to be reconciled.
I really find with accounting, it's your processes and how closely you're sticking to them. Our invoices used to be a mess. Somebody would come in, they'd hand a receipt to our accounts payable person. She'd cut a check right then and there. And so it was functioning similar to what you're describing because, you know, it was just quick, fast, and in a hurry. But you're dealing with somebody else's money. So you really have to stop and document. So maybe put together like a control form. If you turn in a receipt, these are the items that I need, and then you staple it to your receipt, and this is what's handed in to me. I need to know, you know, all of the information that you're describing. And yeah, you make that mandatory. And as soon as people start following that, you know, you put deadlines, you put timelines, you put, like I said, do the control form. This is the information that I need. And then obviously some type of consequences if they don't follow that, because it is so, so important, especially now moving forward for you and the company you're a part of. But 6-year guns on it. What
is your, I mean, I've done corporate, so I know that that's what you have to do. It's just trying to get my team to go with me. So do you give them what? You give them by the end of the month, you say you have to submit by the 5th of the next month. And then if you're not, you have 2 months to submit and then you're out, they're on you.
Is this just like your team submitting like reimbursement receipts or?
I don't know all the things that are going to be happening yet. I'll be honest with you. I guess I'm just sort of future casting and thinking that, you know, down the road, I have one set of contractors who's done most of our stuff up to date, but they're two guys. They're two local guys, and you know they can't do everything. And moving forward, they won't be doing everything. They will be in the pocket of punch list items, or I need, you know, this morning I need you to this, and this. And it's not planned, and then they're not on one single job. Oh, but hey, they had to run to Lowe's and they had to pick up X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and typically speaking, when that happens, honestly, we send them to Lowe's, and when they get to Lowe's, they call us, they hand the phone to the clerk, and the clerk punches in our credit card, and then, you know, and then it just hits our credit card. And I don't, at least from what I've seen, now I haven't dug a whole lot yet, but from what I've seen, it just hits as a Lowe's account. I mean,
That's very hard to track. We did have a lot of Lowe's receipts coming in, and we would actually get a statement, and it does just say Lowe's, and you're really just trying to piece together. I mean, I guess one of the things would be that you guys personally make that order for them. They call in, they submit to you the order. And I understand, because you're running a business and you're trying to keep everybody moving, everybody working, everybody paid. But at some point, I feel like if you just stop and put the hard work in, you know, have them submit to you what they need to order, and then you call Lowe's and you order it. That way, all of the information, all the financial receipts and everything are going directly from you or to you. The other thing I'm not sure that if you can do with Lowe's or not is having them just email you the receipts, or, you know, something along those lines. But I think if you guys are putting in that order and all they're doing is just picking it up, that may be beneficial. And then you can require these contractors to provide you with SKU numbers and the quantity. And then you have one person who is just calling and placing those orders for them based on the SKU numbers and the quantity. And then you already know what transaction is going to hit the card when it hits, you know, whether it's they're picking it up and charging the card or charging the card before they get there. That may be helpful for you guys as well.
When we started having contractors order stuff, one of the first things we took out of their hands was them being able to go to Lowe's and charge an account, because they don't really care about your bookkeeping. And we just had a person, you know, that was their job, was to take the orders. They would go to the store, they'd snap pictures of all the SKUs they wanted and how many. And then we'd have someone online and ordering that stuff and putting it under their name.
Okay. All right. I didn't even, still lots of learning going on.
Yeah.
Maybe set up an email or like a general mailbox for like orders, and then another general mailbox for your contractor invoices. And then just have, you know, and put your deadlines on there. If you have an order that you need picked up tomorrow, your order must be submitted today by noon, or, you know, whatever timelines you're working on. But make them do the work for you, basically. You know what I mean? Yeah. They know what they need. They know if, you know, they want these materials and a paycheck and things like that. They can, you know, do a little more of the laid work for you guys.
Well, and like I said, I mean, most of what's going to go on, how we're moving forward is that when a contract, at least as of right now, so we've got 23 properties, I think we're in the middle of, you know, so it's not astronomical, but eventually it will be.
Yeah. And
so at that point you have to go, right now, what we're doing may not work then. Right now, what we're doing is saying, you know, Bob Smith, you're bidding this property and you've got it. And he puts in his materials and his labor, and we're going to cut him a check. So like, I don't even have to worry about his Lowe's receipts. It's the one-offs of punch list stuff that, you know, our regular guy does, you know, that he just goes in and does the last couple of things. Oh, this plate got cracked, or, you know, it's those little things. But yeah, right. No, I like the, hey, tomorrow, you know, you're going to need this, this, and this. You need to let me know so I can place an order for you.
Exactly.
And then another thing for a tracker, you can, it's free. You can go to googleforms.com and create a Google form, make all the questions you want answered required, and say, hey, to submit an invoice, go to my, you know, submit an invoice Google form, fill that out. I'm not going to pay you unless you do it that way.
I like it.
And then receipt tracking. Hey, you're fired unless you put your receipts in. You have to. They won't do it.
Yeah, no, 100%.
That's on you. You can write it off. Learn how to do accounting the way that I'm having to.
First, you have to put your receipts in the form. And
Yeah.
on the form, you can require whatever questions you want, whatever, what address was this in, who is this, blah, blah, blah. But,
Okay.
And I think give everybody a heads up, send out the expectations, send out what your system you're changing to. And I would give it 30 days to let people get on board. And then I would give them a final chance if they need additional training. Like I kind of explained towards the beginning of the meeting was, sometimes these guys are just really good at putting in the hard work. They're not so great at the behind the scenes bookkeeping or this side of things, but bring them in, do some one-on-one training and just give them that final opportunity to kind of get it together. And, then you start having your conversations after that. That's definitely what we've had to do.
yeah. We have that material ordering site. So all of our vendors go to our material ordering website and order material through us for us to purchase either from our own warehouse or through Lowe's. So
That's right.
it was like such a struggle to get all the contractors on there because a lot of them hate their cell phones. They can't, hit the buttons. They get pissed off real easy. But eventually they all got it. I mean, it just became the only way that they can get material for their jobs and they had to adapt to it. And
yeah, we started doing the same thing with invoices. It used to be people were putting them in a smart sheet, people were mailing them, people were doing all kinds of stuff, and it just got to be complete chaos. So you really just have to crack down. This is the deadline. This is what we're doing. Get on board.
Well, today we got on one email address. So like all purchase agreements, all inspections, all this. It's no longer going to Ryan's personal email box where no one sees it. It comes to the whole team, and we can go, oh, hey, no, we're not gonna do this on the inspection report. So, yeah, no,
we're
that's all
finally past
amazing.
those
Thank
team
you.
emails. Remember, we used to get those all the time.
Say that again.
I think we're past those team emails now. I remember Matt used to send team emails all the time, screaming with stuff that he used to get in his inbox.
I would take a team email if he just sent it to me. I won't, because it's recording. I won't tell you all the dirty laundry.
I know he's gonna watch this later.
Oh no, I already sent it to my finance guy going, so you're gonna need to watch this.
Yeah.
Hi, Brad.
And so
Ronaldo's just sitting there going, oh.
Yeah, but for sure though, if you're, I know you guys want to scale up and you're gonna scale up, you have to start something now. I mean, don't put it off for a couple months because a couple months are going to come up. You're going to be 10 more houses per month in there, and it's be even crazier. And be like, oh, I can't do it now either. So
right.
You got to just start piecing away at it when you can.
I think that is absolute great advice. There are so many things here where I look back and I'm like, oh, we should have done this, 200 houses ago, or it would have been a lot easier to do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes the data entry to take on some of these accounting switches and changes is a little bit overwhelming. So that's really good advice, Tyler.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of jump into a little bit of the property management, like utility bookkeeping. I would say our utility bookkeeping, aside from contractors, is probably where we receive the most volume. So we're receiving, depending on which state you live in, we're receiving utility bills on every single property that is under our management or under our ownership. That is all water bills, all trash bills if those apply, all of the gas and electric bills. So we're receiving a ton of those. So the first step in that is going through and determining what is tenant responsibility. Actually, let me back up a little bit because the ownership change is super important. So when you acquire a new property or when you move a tenant into a property, Megan, are you guys doing any property management or planning to head that direction?
Currently, the answer is no. We do have one tenant. We do have one property that we have a tenant and has a potential for another. To be honest with you, they've been a nightmare. So several of the team members are like, no.
You guys are mainly just focusing on flips.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ronaldo, you said in the future you're looking to do property management, correct?
No.
No, you didn't say that. Must have been a different.
I'm going to be picking up rentals, a couple of rental properties at the end of this year.
That's
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
Okay, so this kind of applies to you then. So our ownership changes. So anytime we acquire a new property, just calling that utility company immediately to get those utilities switched into our ownership. Or when we sell a property, that's going to be under our property management. Doing the same thing, we call and get it switched into the new owner's name. Just to make sure, again, the bookkeeping side is correct. We're billing it where it needs to go and paying it with the appropriate person's funds for those bills. And then we require, when a tenant is getting ready to move into our property, where the utilities are their responsibility, we require that they contact those utility companies up front and get the services transferred over to their names, and then they're required to provide proof to us with the account numbers, just basically showing that they've done their end of the deal. So then from there, we are going to receive the utility bills in the mail. And we just basically do an initial check. So much of bookkeeping is research. Who is this going to? Is this being billed correctly? What is this for? Is this accurate? You basically don't want to trust anything that's being given to you, because you are managing or doing the bookkeeping for somebody else's money. So as much research and investigating that you possibly can do will definitely benefit. So when we receive the ownership or the utility bills in, then we're taking a look to find out, is the owner correct? How long has the tenant lived in the property, if the tenant lives in the property, and so on and so forth. And again, it doesn't matter what bookkeeping you're doing. I would put heavy focus on the dates, like I mentioned during the QuickBooks side of things. So you're going to want to document dates of service, things like that. Let me pull up my screen here really quickly. I'm going to screen share AppFolio just really quickly. I know nobody's using AppFolio, but just to kind of show you what the bills look like in here. Okay, so this is our AppFolio, and then the payee, you're of course going to put the person that you're paying, the amount due. Now I use the invoice date and the due date as the same date because the reports that it shows up on. So basically, if you have the invoice date set for today, and then you have the due date set for, in 2 weeks, it's not going to show up that it's until it's due. So in an effort to avoid that, I just set the dates for basically the date on the bill. That way it's showing up where it should be. And then your reference numbers, your remarks, your memos, all of that information, again, whether you're using QuickBooks or AppFolio or whatever you're using to track, is so important. Basically the invoice number, if you ever need to track it in the future, the dates of service, so you don't get conflicting information. Sometimes, as you guys know, receiving your own utilities, if there's a balance forward or any credits or anything like that, using those dates of service, so that way you're not combining two bills into one and then somebody's paying double because somebody didn't pay attention to that. So definitely the dates of service, and then your memo is your account number. All of these areas that you can document are areas that you're going to be able to use for research down the road if you ever need to come back to it. Or like Megan, in your case, you're experiencing, what is this for? Why did we do this? All of these opportunities and spaces you want to take to put in as much information as you possibly can. And then of course the property information and what account you're using. So it would be,
a bill like this?
Do what?
Can you use QuickBooks to submit a bill like this?
You can put the information into AppFolio and then export it from whatever property management into QuickBooks, but
I'm thinking for like Megan and everyone else, because they're not probably going to have access to AppFolio. Have you done that in the past, like before maybe AppFolio or?
They're just going to probably use QuickBooks for everything. Maybe I'm not answering your question. What is your?
How would you track utility bills in QuickBooks? You just enter them as bills, right?
It's going to be the same thing. You're going to set up an account. So the way that we have accounts for rehab, turnover, she's going to set up an account for utilities, and then she could break that out into, water or trash or electric or gas or however your utilities are billed where you're at. And then she's just going to put it under that account, and then she would include, the reference number. Now, one thing about QuickBooks, and Megan, because you're using it already, maybe you know this, but I try not to use the account number and the reference number. So I'm going to go back to share my screen again, and I'm going to pull up that the bill that I was sharing you guys. So in this reference number, I try not to use my account number there because it's going to flag it for duplicates. So what I try to do is I try to include the same naming system that I was showing you, and like when I was doing the contractor payments, I would include the first 3 or 4 numbers of the house, and then I would include the date after that. Now you can use the date you received the bill, you can use the due date, whatever date works well in your system, but it's basically, like I said, the first 3 or 4 numbers of the address, and then, like for example, today's date 07/27/2020. And then when you're looking through your bills, so on your QuickBooks screen, when you click on a vendor, you can see the vendor name, and then you can also see the reference number. When you're just looking at something like a utility company, you're going to see mass amounts of bills in there. You're going to be able to quickly look for exactly what house and date you're looking for based off of that reference number. So I find that that is the easiest reference number to use. And then I would include the account number in your memo. And that's also going to be what prints on the check if you're printing individual checks.
KaLynn, another thing that comes to mind, our accounts are just like categories basically, right, for filing expenses under. Is it easy to kind of like rattle off what our different categories of accounts are? Like you said, like rehab, utilities, water, blah, 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 just so someone would know.
Yeah, it's going to be rehab, which we kind of classify that separate. I try to look at our business in 2 different businesses. Basically, we have our rehab side, and then we have our property management side. So we have a rehab, we have our turnover, we have maintenance, utilities, and then kind of a security deposit would be another one that you may need to use an account for.
City violation?
You know what? It's kind of up to you. You could count a city violation separately. It's really, you're going to set up your categories based off of what you want to track. If you wanted to combine your maintenance and your city violations, you could definitely do that. A lot of times people are bidding a city violation as a whole. So it may be easier just to combine that into maintenance. Just depends on what numbers you're really looking to track. If at the end of the year I wanted to know how much was wrapped up in city violations, then you're going to want to separate them for sure.
Okay. I didn't know it was that simple. I thought it was like a long list or something.
It really is, but it's because we break out. There's one in there for mortgage payments. It's if you're tracking all of your expenses in QuickBooks, which is what people typically do, you're going to want to set up an account for everything, but you don't want to set it up so granular that it's now hard to track, or it's hard to expect people to use the correct accounts for what they're for or supposed to be for. Sometimes people just
was that a sneeze? I thought you were laughing.
It was a hiccup.
Oh.
Sorry about that.
I thought you were like,
Sometimes people whatever they perceive it to be is what they're going to use it for. And sometimes that's not what whoever set it up had in mind during setup.
Okay, got it.
So yeah, we break that out like rehab interior painting, rehab exterior painting, rehab.
Rehab dash trade, basically, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many.
I remember I don't know, it's probably still the same way, but we probably had so many that people were getting mad that they were, not getting filed under the right things, right?
Yeah, definitely. And we had one called compliance. Now, how I perceive compliance is city violation. What did we have to do to bring it to code? And somebody else said, why are we not doing that as a work order? Because it's basically the same thing. So it's all in your version of it, I suppose.
Yeah, you can put a rehab under compliance because compliance means I need to finish this rehab to make Matt happy. So it's compliance.
See, that's your version. Does anybody have any other questions? I don't really think that there's too much more that I can go over for bookkeeping. It's, basically just setting it up in a way that you can pull the information later once you've entered it to get accurate numbers. So you can, report your financials accurately to your bank or for your records or, your CPA or whatever it is. So it's kind of, up to you and how these things are set up. But I think, Tyler, that's the most valuable advice is you will grow and you'll get there very quickly. And then you're going to look back and say, why did I not just start this, do it the way that I wanted to initially?
For sure. No, you definitely want to start soon because the further and further you go, the more and more you have to reconcile as you go back. And you just got to make the system now, and you don't have to think of every single possible situation, but at least get a good baseline to start with so you're tracking everything.
Yeah, and get people trained in a way that they're like, okay, they want some information. Maybe I don't have all the information, but I can at least provide as much as I possibly can. And I think sometimes explaining to people why they need to do things a certain way helps them understand, oh, I have to have this information because this is how it affects this, that, and the other. You know what I mean? So I think putting those processes in place for bookkeeping is super important as well.
Yeah. So like,
because it keeps KaLynn happy. That's really all you have to say, right? Because that's what's going to be my thing. Because it makes Megan happy. That's why. That's why. Actually, I do have a question for you. So I know you guys use VAs a lot, and so do you have? They obviously have their own account, and I'm sure that there's a VA, an account for each of your VAs. And do you categorize? Like if you have someone who's working off of a project number and working a project amount they're going to be paid versus like someone that you just have hourly on standby who will take care of anything you need when they're online kind of thing. Is there a different delineation between those two scenarios, or do you do it just basically like Sally gets X amount of dollars per hour always, and then when she does a project, we just pay her the project amount and it falls in the same bucket for her? Does that make sense?
It does. The VAs are basically just at a set rate and they're kind of at an hourly rate. And we really try to keep similar tasks and duties with them. So for example, I have a person who is working on maintenance as a virtual assistant. Any special projects that I have him working on just fall under maintenance. He gets paid the same rate, and he, has the same hourly expectation. The only difference I would say is I've just said, there may be, because maintenance is very, very full-time, and even more, you kind of constantly need to be keeping a watchful eye. So I've just asked him to keep that in mind, that he may need to pop on a weekend and just kind of make sure that things are going okay, because he's coordinating maintenance, make sure no emergencies are happening. So that would be the only, direction I've given him as far as his hourly time. But yeah, I just kind of classify it depending on what they're working on, and then it would be the same hourly rate. At least that's what I'm doing with the VAs that I'm working with. Tyler, I don't know, maybe you have a different experience on that.
No, most of the VAs I work with are flat rate, so
okay.
I don't really work with hourly ones.
Okay.
How do you track their time? Are you going through QuickBooks or?
There's a lot of things that have hit my plate in the last 2 weeks that are new to me.
Yeah.
That's one of them. Our one and only VA goes through Loom. I'm not sure.
I think I've heard of it.
To track her time, and then we pay her through something called, I mean, I assume it's pronounced Zoom, but it's with an X, so XOOM.
Yeah.
And I actually wanted to ask, do you guys have a different system that you pay your VAs through? Because with that system, it only allows you to round up to the 100.
Mhm.
So like if their time is $540, it gets up to 600.
Oh, wow. We use, I had a VA use PayPal. I'm not a huge fan of PayPal because of the fraud alerts that happen there. So sometimes it's difficult to use that.
She's not
but we-
comfortable with that one, so that works out well. Yeah.
But TransferWise
TransferWise,
is another one, and Payoneer is the other that we're familiar with.
What's it called?
TransferWise and Payoneer.
Payoneer.
Yep, Payoneer.
Thank you.
Yeah, those work good because they're comfortable with foreign payments. They don't kick back all the time.
That's what we're looking for. But I'm like, I'm she makes a very good hourly wage with us.
Yeah.
And then to have that happen, I'm like, oh, not overpaying anybody for another $40.
In-house guys though, do you have in-house guys on like time payroll?
Yes, yeah, our maintenance staff, we have a couple of turnover guys. Oh, you're talking to her, I'm
I know
sorry.
who we got.
I thought you were asking me for her reference.
No, I want to know what Megan does. Megan, you have that.
No, everybody's a W-9.
Okay.
Everybody's a W-9, including me. So, with pros and cons, obviously, to that. But no.
Okay.
So I just have, everybody gets paid what they get paid, and it's a set amount per paycheck. So, but I guess now listening to all this, you know, everyone will obviously have their account. So it says payroll.
Are you guys just tracking, because I heard you guys were just talking about in the last conversation, you guys were talking about tracking time of the VA and the payments to them. Are you tracking that through QuickBooks as well?
I'm sure their payouts get tracked in QuickBooks somewhere after we pay them out through a credit card. But as far as like actually paying them, it's through those sites we just mentioned. And then time tracking, I believe it's either through, a lot of them are worked through Upwork, so it does the time tracking for you. But I think, man, I can't think off the top of my head. I think maybe you could try Busy for the time tracking part of it.
You could do that. A lot of times I have them working on things that I can closely monitor. They would provide kind of a start of the day report, just kind of outlining and sending that, and then also an end of the day report, just to outline what they've done. You can require that they basically report their numbers. That's what we do in-house anyway with our normal office staff. They have to report their numbers and their metrics. How many people did you call? How many leases did you sign? So on and so forth. So we do the same thing with VAs, and just basically we keep them on the same metric system that or scoreboard that we do for our in-office people.
Yep.
And from working on certain things, you know, the volume that somebody should be able to handle in a certain amount of time, or you know when the numbers don't make sense. You know, I've called 400 people and I only spoke to 2 of them. You know something's a little off there, and you need to, you know, be asking certain questions to kind of let them know that you know what they're trying to do maybe. But yeah, you should be able to kind of gauge. And then the other thing I try to think about is they may be able to be even more productive because they don't have the interruptions that, you know, our internal office staff have. So
you talked about the time tracker. You said busy, and what was the other one?
Upwork.
Well, Upwork is just for VAs, and then like physical people, T-sheets.
You
Your
said
T-sheets through QuickBooks.
cheat sheets?
T-sheets.
T-sheets.
Yes.
Yep. And then Busy is the time track. It's actually specifically for contractors. I can actually, let me log into that and I can share my my screen for T-sheets or for Busy.
So T-sheets for contractors, right?
Busy is, but your T-sheets is going to be more specific for your like payroll, on payroll people. Your T-sheets will actually filter in to your QuickBooks, your payroll. So if you have a scheduled payroll, but I believe that you can use T-sheets for 1099 contractors as well. We don't use it for that. So I'm not exactly sure the ins and outs of it, but it is an app that you download on your phone. So they can clock in and out basically as they're at certain addresses, and leave a description of the work that they're doing while they're there.
Yeah, T-sheets.
Oh, go ahead, Tyler.
No, T-sheets is pretty nice. I mean, it's probably a good place to start. But for a VA, all Busy is, or anyone that's going to be using time tracking, it's just clock in, clock out, and they assign it to a job. So.
Yeah, it's very easy. You know, you're going to clock in, and can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to clock in, and then it's going to give you the option to put a project. Now, our projects are labeled as addresses. So we were using this previously for the people who were doing our turnover work. So they would select the address and then a brief description of what they were doing there. You know, if they have a scope of work that they can reference, that's best, but the more specific, the better. These are things that are going to be billed to our owners, so we want details, because if we're asked details, we want to be able to provide them. And then as far as like a manager level, it's easy because you can pull reports. And again, it just depends on what level of access, if you're doing the free account or what, but you can pull the time card entries. And I'm gonna have to back this up a little bit. We haven't had anybody on Busy for a couple of weeks. So this is what it looks like. It gives the date, the date or the time that they started, when did they stop. It gives the details, where they were at, what they were doing while they were there. It's just super helpful because you're able to, you know, track what they're doing. And then it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before with bookkeeping, is just making sure that they're giving a good description of what they were doing and how long they were at each place. And sometimes getting people to follow that is difficult, but it's a good one.
I think you can use Busy for pretty much anything. You can put like, you know, accounting dash data entry. You can put acquisitions dash marketing, so your VA can work under there and, you know, log their time. You can probably pay them based off that too, instead of, you know, jumping through hoops and doing some other stuff.
Well, that's exactly right. Like when you sign somebody up in Busy, that's part of the setup. Is you get their, obviously their name, their email. It's an app they can download to their phone. And then from there, you're going to put in their hourly rate. So I think Busy can probably do more than what we were using it for. We were really just focusing on the time tracking and then being able to figure out what people were doing while they were at each individual project.
Yeah. So you can probably configure like a weekly report and say, hey, every Friday I want this to spit out a payable report for my employees. And then you can just, you know, hop into Payoneer or TransferWise, whatever it would be, and, you know, put those in.
Yeah, it was very, very easy to use that. I was going to try to log into my T-sheets to kind of show you guys how that operated there. It's very, very similar to Busy, except for it actually shows the time tracker on your phone. But again, you can do the similar functions as switching the address and putting in the description of what you're doing there. You can even attach photos. You can use the map in T-sheets. It has a ton of different functions And then again, if you're using QuickBooks for your accounting, it links directly into QuickBooks. You can pull that information directly from T-Sheets, and the two kind of communicate or talk, so you can get what information you need.
Yeah, T-Sheets was pretty cool on the phone, because like imagine a maintenance guy that has like a full schedule of houses to visit all day. He has his app. He's got 4 buttons, I think. It's like clock out, clock in, take a break, and switch. So they're at one house in the morning, they get done, they drive to the next one, they hit switch, and they switch to the next address and starts clocking under that one, hit switch, and go out throughout their day, and then they hit clock out.
It's very, very user-friendly, for sure. I can try to, I can't figure out why I can't clock in or log in on my actual, like online. I could try to log in on my phone and show you, or I think we have like a printed like PDF that we hand out to new hires for how they use it. I can potentially share that as well.
You guys have any more questions before wrap up?
Well, I have one question regarding like VAs. It might not have to, it's just with cold calling. You got VAs cold calling. Now, how are you tracking how many calls they're making or how long they're staying on the phone?
Well, what are they calling through? Are they calling through their own phone, or do you have them going through one of your programs?
No, I'm just asking you in general, what are you guys using? You know, how do you?
So we use CallRail's soft phone right now. So you have your CallRail account. You can see all your activity and record the calls and all that stuff. So they're going into CallRail. They can dial out of it and dial out from a specific campaign, and I think they can just see all the reports right there. But for other cold calling, there's Mojo Dialer too, which tracks all those stats and you can report them.
Motor dialer?
Mojo Dialer, M-O-J-O.
M-O-G-L?
M-O-J-O.
Okay, okay. Mojo.
I think Mojo Dialer is a little bit more expensive, but it's actually a really nice cold calling program. Because you can call, multiple people at the same time until someone picks up.
Okay.
Megan, you got anything?
This has been amazing. I'm sorry I was so late to the party. I got stuck on the phone with one of the higher ups. So
Okay. We were a little late too, so.
Not me, not
At
we.
least I was.
KaLynn's like on time. Respect your time.
She texted me, oh crap, right up here.
No, this has been amazing. It definitely is a holding people's feet to the fire is being my biggest struggle, and that's just sadly what I'm good at. I don't love it. I have to make people do it.
Someone's gotta do it.
It'll be worth it for sure.
All right.
Who just jumped on? Whoever just jumped on, we're signing off here unless you have a quick question you want to ask, but you'll get the replay later and the next call with Matt on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So if you unmute in the next couple seconds, or we'll be signing off.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah, no problem, Megan.
All right,
Ronaldo,
easy.
next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. All right. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.